You have a power within you, a fire that never truly dies. It may flicker, it may dim, but it is always there, waiting. And when you least expect it, there's a moment, a thought, a challenge that becomes the spark. It adds fuel to your flame. You may already believe you understand the limits of your own potential, that you've mapped the borders of your strength. But let me tell you, what you believe is merely the surface. Beneath that surface is a vast ocean of untapped force and unrealized ability. You don't yet know the depth of your resilience, the scope of your mind, or the greatness you can summon in a single decision. You are not the beginning of your story. You are a living continuation of the unbroken chain of thousands of generations of your ancestors that came before you. Each one survived storms, wars, losses, plagues, and trials. They didn't all have the tools you have now, but they had spirit, they had grit. You are here not by accident, but because of an unbroken will to endure and push forward. That legacy lives in you, whether you recognize it or not. You have inherited not just genetics, but strength, not just a body, but a history of unrelenting perseverance. Your mind is your strongest weapon, sharper than steel, more enduring than stone. Your body, while fragile in moments, is a powerful vehicle, capable of carrying your dreams, your mission, and your will across the roughest terrains of life. This is why we must nurture and respect ourselves, feed the body with discipline and the mind with clarity. When the storms of life come and you feel shaken, disoriented, or lost in uncertainty, remind yourself of this truth. You are more capable than any obstacle before you. You are more powerful than the doubts whispered within or the criticisms hurled from the outside world. In those moments when darkness closes in, when the path ahead seems too steep, stop and speak to yourself. Say this: I am made of fire. I am made of endurance. I do not need others to understand me, because I understand who I am becoming. Let your self-talk be fuel, not friction. Every time you affirm your own power, you chip away at the walls of doubt built by fear, failure, and forgotten worth. And remember, this is not about achieving perfection. It is about remembering who you are beneath the noise. With every repetition of belief, your inner critic weakens and your true voice emerges. You are not broken and you are not behind. You are becoming. And in that becoming, the less you will doubt yourself, the more boldly you will move forward. You will stop underestimating what you can do, and instead you will begin to embody the truth you've always known deep inside, that you were built to rise. Chapter 1. The Stoic Truth of Inner Strength. The Stoics taught that strength does not come from external accolades or titles. It comes from within. Epictetus, once a slave, said, "No man is free unless he is master of himself." We begin here because the world teaches us to look outside for validation, yet the Stoics urge us to turn inward. When you underestimate yourself, you are looking through a lens clouded by fear, doubt, and the judgment of others. The power you hold is not a fantasy or motivational slogan. It is rooted in your rational mind, your capacity for discipline, and your ability to endure. The Stoics believed that virtue was the only good, and that it lived in our character, not in what we owned or achieved. Your strength is not conditional upon applause. It's demonstrated by how you rise after falling, how you stay calm in chaos, and how you hold fast when the world tries to sway you. Every time you catch yourself saying, "I can't," stop. Ask yourself instead, who told me that I couldn't? Was it the world, or was it my own weakened belief? Your underestimation of yourself begins in thought, and as Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. This is not about arrogance, it's about alignment with the deeper truth of who you are. Arrogance inflates the ego, but alignment grounds the spirit. When your thoughts, intentions, and actions all point in the same direction, toward your highest self, doubt begins to dissolve. It loses its grip because there is no contradiction within you. Integrity becomes your armor, and consistency becomes your strength. Instead of obsessing over outcomes or recognition, fix your attention on the moment in front of you. Don't fixate on the distant finish line. It will come in time. Focus on the next right move, the next step taken in wisdom, the next action rooted in clarity. The destination may motivate you, but the path is walked one step at a time. That is where your power lives. Let go of the need to perform. Think about showing up for yourself. Show up in silence. Show up when no one applauds. Show up because you promised yourself you would. Showing off seeks attention, but showing up builds momentum. With every act of self-discipline, you affirm that you are someone who can be trusted by others, but more importantly, by yourself. Confidence built this way doesn't waver with opinion or approval. It deepens, it stabilizes, and it expands. It grows in the dark and reveals its strength in the light. That is the Stoic path, not to shine for the world, but to burn steadily from within. Start each day by writing down one strength you possess and one fear you will face. Reframe that fear as an opportunity to display courage. Keep your journal honest. As weeks pass, you'll see your own transformation in your own handwriting. Chapter 2. The Habit of Self-Doubt. Self-doubt is not born with us. It is cultivated. Through rejection, failure, or ridicule, we learn to question our worth. But the Stoics teach that we cannot control the judgments of others, only how we respond. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That suffering becomes a habit. We wear it like armor, hoping it will protect us from future harm, but in truth, it only weighs us down. Each time we doubt ourselves, we reinforce a narrative that becomes harder to break. But this narrative is not truth. It's a shadow on the wall of your mind. To break this habit, you must interrupt it. Each time a doubt appears, shine light on it. Ask, is this true? Can I be certain? Often you'll find it's not truth you're facing, it's fear dressed up as logic. The Stoics were not immune to fear, but they trained their minds to navigate fear with reason. They believed that nothing outside of virtue can harm the soul. When you doubt yourself, you place your fate in things outside of you, public opinion, past mistakes, or future outcomes. Reclaim your fate. To underestimate yourself is to lie about your own ability. It is a subtle and persistent betrayal of the truth within you. When you minimize your potential, you're not practicing humility, you're distorting reality. You're choosing to wear a mask of limitation in a world that desperately needs your authenticity and your strength. It's not noble to pretend you're powerless. It's misleading, and it holds back not only your own growth, but the good you could offer to others. This form of self-sabotage is insidious because it often wears the disguise of modesty. It makes you feel like you're being self-aware or reasonable, when in reality, you're constructing barriers in your mind that prevent your greatness from emerging. Humility is a virtue, yes, but only when it's honest. Honest humility recognizes both our strengths and weaknesses, and it knows when to speak, when to lead, and when to act. Do not confuse humility with invisibility. Invisibility says, "I'll stay quiet so I don't make a mistake." True humility says, "I'll contribute what I can, even if I may stumble, because the effort is worthy." The Stoic way is not to deny the gifts you have, nor to dim your light to keep others comfortable. The Stoic way is to know your abilities deeply, to train them with purpose, and to use them with wisdom. Your talents are not accidents. Your insight is not something to bury. The more you develop and wield them in the service of virtue, the more you rise above self-doubt, and the more you begin to live as the person you were always meant to be. Each time self-doubt appears, practice premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Visualize the worst that could happen and walk your mind through your response. Prepare for it, train for it. Often you'll find the storm isn't as strong as your ship. Chapter 3. Endurance builds confidence. Confidence does not come from speeches or praise. It comes from enduring what you thought would break you. The Stoics placed great value on hardship, not for suffering's sake, but for transformation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." You gain confidence not by wishing for ease, but by proving to yourself, again and again, that you can overcome. Each trial, each setback, each unexpected twist of life is not a curse, but a crucible. You become resilient, not through avoiding discomfort, but through walking straight into it and emerging stronger. Every difficulty is a forge, and you are the blade being shaped. The more friction, the more precise the edge. Each test you face, emotional, physical, spiritual, sharpens you beyond your previous limits. You don't just learn what you can survive, you begin to understand what you can shape, direct, and ultimately command. When you reflect on your life, remember the weight you once carried. Think of the moments when you were convinced you'd break, the nights you didn't sleep, the days you struggled to speak or stand or move forward. Yet here you are, still moving, still growing. To underestimate yourself is to wipe those triumphs from memory. It is to dishonor your own evolution. Don't do that. Make a list. Document the hardships you endured, the moments you rose when staying down felt easier. That list is not just your past. It is a testament to your strength, and it should inform how you walk into your future. The Stoics didn't just believe in strength, they cultivated it through habit. They trained their minds like warriors trained their bodies. They didn't wait for hardship, they practiced it. Seneca would deliberately invite discomfort into his life, not to suffer, but to remember that he could survive it. This wasn't about masochism, it was about mastery. He wanted to remain free from the illusion that comfort was required for peace of mind. In his own words, he sought to remind himself that the worst others feared was already familiar to him and therefore powerless to disturb him. Are you training your mind in the same way? Are you preparing yourself not just for the good days, but for the inevitable challenges? When you accept that discomfort is a tutor, not a tyrant, you start to grow confidence that can't be shaken. It's the kind of confidence that lives beneath the surface, rooted deep, weathering the storms without faltering. This is how true confidence is born, not loud, not boastful, but steady, silent, and undeniable. Once a week, do something difficult by choice. A disciplined workout schedule, push-ups and sit-ups, a cold shower, a long fast, a social interaction you've been avoiding. Reflect afterward, not on the discomfort, but on your ability to endure it. Track your growth. Chapter 4. Your mind is your masterpiece. The mind is the canvas upon which your life is painted. What you think, you become. The Stoics were obsessed with right judgment, right thinking. They understood that a corrupted mind leads to a corrupted life. To underestimate yourself is to allow your mind to fall into disrepair. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that he could control his thoughts, and if he could do that, nothing could truly disturb him. The mind is not a passive recorder. It is a sculptor, a lens, and a gatekeeper. When you think clearly, you act powerfully. When you feed your mind trash, you produce chaos. Start treating your mind like the sacred space it is. This isn't just about thinking positive thoughts. It's about recognizing that the quality of your thoughts determines the direction of your life. Guard what you allow into it, the way you would guard a sanctuary. Be deliberate about what you consume, what voices you listen to, and what narratives you adopt. Clean it regularly by practicing self-reflection, meditation, and silence. Sweep out old beliefs that no longer serve you. Replace them with truth, with clarity, with direction. Audit your beliefs like you would audit a business that's been running on autopilot. Are they serving you or sabotaging you? Are they helping you rise, or are they keeping you small, confined, and reactive? Beliefs are the foundation stones of your mindset, and unchecked, they become the default scripts that govern every choice you make. A disorganized mind breeds chaos, but an ordered mind creates opportunity. Do not underestimate the power of a clean thought. One single clear idea, truly owned and fully believed, can untangle years of confusion, self-doubt, and indecision. When you begin to think like a Stoic, you shift from reacting emotionally to responding deliberately. Instead of being tugged around by impulse, you become an observer of your own mind. You learn to pause, to breathe, to ask questions before you act. You stop being at the mercy of your environment and start becoming a sovereign force within it. That's not detachment, it's dominion over your emotional responses. It's self-governance at its highest level. You become the filter of your own reality rather than a sponge for external chaos. You sift through incoming information like a disciplined guard at the gates of your mind, only allowing what is useful, what is true, and what aligns with your values. You stop letting every harsh word or negative opinion pass unchallenged into your consciousness. Your sense of self begins to stabilize. Your decisions become guided by principle, not pressure. You begin to act like one, grounded, resilient, thoughtful. Each action becomes deliberate, infused with purpose. You no longer flinch at pressure or falter under chaos. Instead, you respond with grace, with calculated calm, with wisdom earned through reflection. Your movements carry intention, not haste. Your presence carries weight, not noise. You are no longer someone reacting to life. You are someone designing it. You become the quiet center in a spinning world, unshaken by storms, because you've trained your roots to run deep. You become someone who isn't easily rattled, whose focus stays steady even when circumstances aren't, because your strength no longer relies on stability. It's born of your own internal order. And when you act like one, the world begins to change in response. Not because it morphs into your ideal image overnight, but because you start aligning yourself so strongly with reality that your interpretation of it becomes cleaner, clearer, and more constructive. You stop being tossed around by external events and start navigating life like a captain who knows both the seas and their ship. Prepared, not paranoid, aware, not afraid. Not necessarily because the external circumstances shift overnight, but because your posture toward them becomes unshakable. You don't fold when things go wrong, you recenter. That posture, the upright bearing of one who knows their power, communicates volumes even in silence. It says, "I am in command of myself." Your energy becomes calm but commanding, still but strong. It begins to influence the emotional temperature of every room you walk into, not by dominance, but by resonance. People feel the steadiness you've cultivated and unconsciously begin to regulate themselves in your presence. You remind them, just by existing, what composure looks like. Your presence begins to influence your environment without a single word spoken. This is the quiet force of inner clarity, where you don't need to control anyone because you have mastered control over yourself. You are no longer baited by every disagreement, distracted by every opinion, or swayed by every new pressure. You are a lighthouse, not a weather vane. You no longer need to win arguments or prove your point. Your consistency, your peace, and your self-respect speak louder than any statement. You embody your philosophy. That is the enduring power of mastering your mind. That is the Stoic fire, controlled, powerful, and unwavering. It burns within, steady and true, lighting your path without ever needing to roar. Practice the view from above. Once a day, close your eyes and visualize yourself from above your room. Imagine the ceiling vanishing and your perspective rising higher. Then lift your view beyond your city, where traffic, buildings, and busy lives blur into patterns. Rise above your country, where entire states and landscapes unfold like a map, each filled with their own millions of stories and struggles. Keep going until you float above the Earth itself, our planet, suspended in space, spinning slowly in silence. Notice how small everything becomes: your deadlines, your worries, your frustrations. The storm inside you becomes a ripple, your anxiety becomes a flicker. As you observe from this cosmic height, remember that all of human life shares this little globe. Everyone struggles, everyone suffers, everyone hopes. This awareness is not meant to detach you, but to ground you. You begin to see that many of the things you hold with such emotional weight are temporary, even trivial in the grand scale of existence. You realize how little control you have over external events, and how much control you actually have over your response to them. Then gently return to yourself. Bring your awareness back to your current place. Open your eyes, but keep that high-altitude wisdom in your heart. You'll find that you feel lighter, more centered, and far more aware of what truly matters. You'll speak more calmly, act more purposefully, and carry yourself with an inner spaciousness that can't be shaken by every minor inconvenience. That is the gift of the view from above. It doesn't shrink your problems, it elevates your perception. Chapter 5. The Danger of False Comparison. You were not made to be anyone else, yet when you underestimate yourself, it often comes from comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. The Stoics rejected comparison as a metric for self-worth. Your path is your own. Your virtue is not diminished by someone else's success. Comparison corrupts. It turns ambition into jealousy and discipline into insecurity. It takes the fuel meant for your growth and pours it into the engine of resentment. What begins as inspiration can quickly twist into self-judgment, and judgment, especially self-inflicted, distorts your view of progress. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors, because when you look outward for your identity, you lose touch with your inner compass. True growth is internal. It's quiet, often invisible, and always personal. External markers, likes, titles, praise, can be tempting to chase, but they never give the full picture. That person you envy, they too carry scars. They too have nights of doubt, mornings of fear, and silent burdens you'll never see. Their success might be real, but so is their suffering. You cannot see their battles, but they exist, as real and as pressing as your own. When you constantly measure yourself against others, you shrink your unique path to fit a mold that was never meant for you. The Stoics taught that virtue is the only true good, and virtue has no competition. To rise above comparison, you must redirect your gaze inward. Stop scanning the horizon for someone else's progress and start tending the soil of your own life. Compete only with your former self. That's the only version of you that matters, the one from yesterday. Ask yourself daily, are you braver than you were yesterday? More honest, kinder, more disciplined? Are you learning? Are you trying? That is the only scoreboard that matters. No one else walks your exact journey. No one else knows the full weight of your past, the depth of your struggle, or the fire in your intentions. When you stop comparing, you start respecting your own pace. You stop sprinting towards someone else's goal and start walking steadily toward your own truth. You begin to trust that your efforts are enough, not because someone else approves, but because you've honored your values and your vision. That's the kind of growth no algorithm can measure, and the only kind that leads to peace. Set a weekly self-improvement score. Rank yourself 1 to 10 on areas you value: discipline, calm, courage, kindness. Reflect on what helped you improve and where you slipped. Adjust, grow, but measure only against yourself. Chapter 6. Fear is a false prophet. Fear will try to convince you that it's the voice of wisdom, but fear does not see the truth. It sees the past. It replays failures, mistakes, embarrassment. The Stoics did not deny fear. They dissected it. They examined it with logic until it lost its shape. Seneca wrote, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." We often underestimate ourselves not because we're weak, but because we believe the worst-case scenario is inevitable. We think we will fail again, hurt again, be humiliated again. But the Stoic practice of reason asks us to slow down and question, is this fear helping me or halting me? If you obey fear, it becomes your master. If you challenge it, it becomes your teacher. When you lean into discomfort with a reasoned mind, you discover your strength in real time, and it often surprises you. You learn that what once seemed unbearable is actually manageable when met with clarity. You realize that fear is often an exaggeration, a fog that vanishes the moment you take a single step forward. By allowing discomfort to be part of your process, rather than something to run from, you reveal the resilience that has always been inside you, waiting to be acknowledged. This is the hidden benefit of leaning in. You become intimately familiar with your own thresholds, and those thresholds begin to expand. You begin to sense with deeper accuracy where fear ends and your real edge begins. What once felt like an impenetrable wall becomes a door you now have the key to. Every time you confront a fear or endure a challenge without running, you stretch the borders of your inner strength. You expand your capacity for discomfort, for clarity, for composure. Your nervous system adjusts to new levels of intensity. Your breathing becomes steadier in pressure. Your thinking sharpens under stress instead of crumbling from it. You start to trust yourself in deeper, more permanent ways. Not because everything becomes easier, but because you have proven that you can stay rooted when it becomes hard. That's the kind of trust that changes how you live, not just in extraordinary moments, but in the quiet rhythms of your daily life. It shifts your posture, both physically and spiritually. You stand straighter, breathe deeper, and move more deliberately. You begin to carry yourself as someone who belongs wherever they are, not because of external validation, but because of a deep, earned self-respect. You walk with a different presence when you're not fleeing your own fears. You no longer tiptoe through life trying to avoid discomfort. Instead, you step into challenge with calm eyes and steady breath. You speak with greater steadiness when you've stared down anxiety and survived. Your words carry weight because they come from experience, not theory. You begin to realize that even your presence alone can be a balm to others, not because you never struggle, but because you've proven that you can navigate that struggle with grace. And it doesn't require a massive transformation, just small acts of courage, repeated. These acts compound like interest, gaining strength and influence with time. Each one plants a seed of inner assurance that eventually becomes a forest of self-trust. You grow roots that can't be seen but are deeply felt. They hold you firm through winds that once would have carried you away. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the correct relationship with it. It's learning to walk beside fear without letting it hold the map. It's recognizing fear as a signal, not a stop sign. It's developing the ability to discern between legitimate caution and a limiting belief that has outlived its usefulness. It's understanding that while fear can inform your awareness, it must not dictate your action. You use fear as a data point, not a dictator. You ask, "What is this fear trying to teach me?" and listen without judgment. A courageous person doesn't wait for fear to disappear. They move forward with it in hand, as a companion, not a captor. They know that bravery is born in the doing, not in the planning. It's the act of showing up, even when unsure. It's the willingness to be seen, to be vulnerable, to fail, and to try again. You do not become fearless by waiting. You become courageous by acting. And in that moment of forward motion, small or large, you become someone new, someone who no longer underestimates what they're capable of enduring and achieving, someone who has earned their own trust, someone who sees fear but walks anyway, because what lies beyond it is the truth of who you really are and who you have always had the potential to become. Name your fears, write them out, then answer them with rational responses. Treat your journal like a courtroom. You are both the prosecutor of fear and the defender of reason. Let the truth settle the argument. Chapter 7. Self-respect begins in solitude. Too often, people only feel worthy when praised, validated, or seen by others. This is a fragile form of confidence. The Stoics believed that your worth is proven in solitude. What do you do when no one is watching? How do you speak to yourself when no one can hear? Self-respect begins with internal loyalty. It's the silent promise you make to yourself that you won't abandon your values, even when no one's looking. You keep promises to yourself, not because someone is watching, but because you are watching. You know when you break your own word, and that breach slowly chips away at your sense of identity. You build structure in your days not for applause, not to be seen, but for alignment. Alignment between who you are and who you intend to become. That's the kind of discipline that fortifies your soul. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the discipline of morning routines and how important it is to rise with purpose even when you don't feel like it. That's where integrity is born, in the moments when motivation fails, but commitment remains. The moment you stand up when it would be easier to stay in bed, the moment you choose effort over ease. These moments might seem small, but they define the foundation of self-respect. If you only act strong when others are watching, that's performance. It's a costume you wear, not a core you embody. But if you act with strength in silence, that's integrity, that's character. That's the kind of inner consistency that breeds confidence so deep it doesn't need to be validated. It simply exists. You start to carry yourself differently, not to impress others, but because you respect the path you walk. You underestimate yourself when your validation depends on the eyes of others. When your worth rises and falls with the opinions of the world, you become fragile. But true strength comes from being able to sit alone with yourself and still feel whole. It comes from finding peace not in distractions, entertainment, or applause, but in the quiet company of your own thoughts. When the world goes silent, when there's no audience and no validation, and you can still feel at ease with who you are, then you've reached something profound. When you can enjoy your own company, hear your own thoughts clearly without needing to escape them, and stand in your own truth without seeking permission or approval, you tap into a kind of resilience that external circumstances can't shake. This kind of solitude is not loneliness, it's strength in stillness. It's clarity without chaos. It's where the noise dies down and your real voice rises. And when that voice is steady, kind, and aligned with your values, you've touched something unshakable. That is the birthplace of unbreakable confidence. The confidence that doesn't shout, doesn't beg, but simply is. It lives in how you carry yourself when no one else is watching, and it marks the end of unnecessary self-doubt. Because when you know you're enough on your own, the world no longer gets to decide your worth. Create one small ritual for yourself each morning. It might be a 10-minute walk, a workout routine like push-ups and sit-ups, a cold rinse, silent reading, or a meditation. Do it every day, no matter what. Not to prove anything to the world, but to prove something to yourself. Chapter 8. Failure is not a verdict. Failure is not an identity. It's not a sign from the universe that you're not enough. It is simply feedback. The Stoics knew this. They did not label experiences as good or bad, only as opportunities to practice virtue. If you fail, the Stoic response is not to wallow, it's to ask, how can I become stronger, wiser, more resilient from this? Epictetus said, difficulties are things that show a person who they are. When you label yourself a failure, you cut short your evolution. When you treat failure as a step in the path, you remove the sting. You cannot control outcomes, but you can control your response, and that response will define your life far more than any event. Don't let past outcomes dim your inner light. Let them instruct you, not define you. Every setback is a page, not the whole story. The moment you shift from shame to inquiry, you reclaim your power. Failure doesn't speak the final word. It speaks the first of many in a longer conversation about resilience, growth, and strength. When you fail with grace, with clarity, with a commitment to learn and adapt, you become more than the event that occurred. You rise above it. You extract the wisdom. You develop an inner compass that isn't dependent on perfection, but anchored in perseverance. You are not diminished. You are being reshaped, transformed not by triumph alone, but by the willingness to rise from the lessons etched in loss. After any failure, complete a failure reflection. What did I learn? What will I do differently next time? What virtues did I display? This process rewires failure from shame into strategy. Chapter 9. Your words shape your world. The Stoics were precise with their language. They knew words carry weight, not just outward, but inward. The way you speak to yourself determines how you view the world and how you act in it. If you constantly say, "I'm not good enough," your actions will shrink to match your speech. But if you say, "I'm still growing," you give your mind permission to expand. Marcus Aurelius journaled every day not to be poetic, but to sharpen his thinking. He knew his words, repeated in private, became his philosophy in public. How you speak is how you think, and how you think is how you live. Strive to speak with clarity, thoughtfulness, and elegance. Choose your words with care, and avoid unnecessary slang or excessive profanity, even if you are surrounded by others who speak that way. Your language is a reflection of your mind, and when you speak with precision and intention, you elevate not only your communication, but your entire presence. Speak as someone who values understanding and wisdom, and you will begin to notice a shift within yourself. Your thoughts will become more orderly, your ideas more refined, and your confidence more natural. Others will notice too. Your example may inspire them to elevate their own speech, and through this subtle influence, you contribute to raising the standard of discourse in your environment. Start by noticing your self-talk. Would you speak to a friend that way? Would you speak to a child that way? If not, it's time to shift. The Stoics aimed for truth, clarity, and alignment. You must do the same with your language. Write 5 phrases you will no longer say to yourself, and 5 you will replace them with. Practice saying the new ones aloud each morning. Speak them until they become your inner monologue. Chapter 10. Becoming the person you admire. There is a version of you that you admire, the one who keeps promises, walks with purpose, shows resilience in storms. The Stoics believed you should not wait to become that person. You should embody them now, moment by moment. Epictetus encouraged students to ask, what would Socrates or Zeno do in this situation? The purpose was not imitation, but inspiration. Imagine your best self. Then live like them today. Do not underestimate yourself by thinking that growth is far away. Growth happens in the next action, in the next hour, in this very moment. The Stoics understood that greatness is not an accident. It's a byproduct of daily discipline. You already have everything you need to become who you're meant to be. Every quality you admire in others, discipline, resilience, clarity, strength, is already within you in some form, waiting to be nourished. You don't need to acquire worth. You need to uncover it. It has been layered over by doubt, buried beneath fear, and dimmed by years of seeking outside what has always lived inside. The path to your potential is not a distant road. It's right beneath your feet. Each small intentional action moves you closer. Each time you choose discipline over distraction, courage over comfort, or purpose over passivity, you bring that version of yourself further into the light. You don't need to become someone else. You simply need to be who you are at your highest level. You just have to stop underestimating how close you are to it. Often, the gap between who you are and who you could be isn't measured in years or miles. It's measured in decisions. One new habit, one brave step, one change in perspective, and everything shifts. You are not as far away from your best self as you think. In truth, you are just one act of belief away. Write a short paragraph describing the version of yourself you admire most. Then write down 3 daily actions that version of you would take. Begin doing them now, without exception. Chapter 11. The body follows the mind. You are not just thought, you are movement, breath, sensation. The Stoics respected the body as a servant of the mind. They trained it, disciplined it, nourished it. A weak body can cloud a strong mind. When you neglect your health, your focus, your sleep, your movement, when you ignore the physical vessel that carries your ambition, you make it increasingly difficult to believe in yourself. A fatigued body blurs the clarity of your thoughts. It lowers your energy, your enthusiasm, your ability to endure setbacks. The body carries the burdens of doubt in ways the mind alone cannot recognize. A tense neck, a sluggish pace, shallow breathing, these are not just symptoms, they are signals. But when you begin to treat your body not as an afterthought, but as a trusted ally in your pursuit of strength and peace, something profound begins to happen. Your confidence grows, not because you force it, but because you start to feel aligned from the inside out. You underestimate yourself when you separate your mind and body, as if thought and flesh are disconnected. But they are not. They work in seamless union. One affects the other constantly. When you eat clean, move daily, hydrate well, and rest deeply, your thinking sharpens. Your ability to focus increases. You feel less reactive and more deliberate. You gain momentum, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. Small habits compound into great outcomes. You begin to act like someone who believes in their potential, not just intellectually, but viscerally. Your body reinforces what your mind knows to be true, that you are capable of more than you once believed. Your power is not limited to thought. It's expressed in movement, in stillness, in breath, in presence, and in action. The way you carry yourself shapes how you feel and how others perceive your energy. When you sit upright, walk with intention, and act with strength, you radiate conviction. The Stoics knew this well. Respect your body, train it with consistency, nourish it with care, and it will carry your confidence like a warrior with armor, light on the outside, impenetrable within. This is not vanity. This is preparation for life's battles, anchored in the understanding that your physicality is an extension of your philosophy. Create a daily body practice. Stretching, walking, training, whatever you can commit to. While doing it, repeat affirmations of strength and discipline. Let your body memorize the rhythm of belief. Chapter 12. The Compass of Virtue. Virtue is your compass. When you don't know what to do, ask, what is the courageous choice? What is the just path? What is the wise action? The Stoics believed that right action creates right outcomes, not always in the world, but always in the soul. To underestimate yourself is often to forget your values. You get lost in outcomes, status, comparison. But when you return to virtue, you return to clarity. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, war, and sickness. Yet he wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's a man who knew where his strength came from, not from the throne, but from character. Let virtue be your root, your unshakable foundation in a world that often values appearances more than substance. Let it guide your speech, so that every word you speak is not just true, but also kind, measured, and necessary. Let it influence your habits, shaping your routines with discipline, intention, and care. Let virtue serve as your compass when making decisions, big or small, aligning your actions with your deeper values instead of fleeting emotions or external pressure. When you move with integrity, you walk taller, not in arrogance, but in quiet confidence. You feel connected to something ancient and enduring. You no longer chase respect because you emanate it, not because others admire you, though they often will, but because you admire yourself. You know you've done what is right, even when it was difficult. You can look in the mirror and stand tall, knowing your choices were rooted in principle, not ego. That kind of dignity can't be taken, it can only be lived. Choose one core virtue each week: courage, justice, temperance, or wisdom. Make it your theme. Each night, reflect. How did I live this virtue today? Where did I fall short? Adjust and recommit. Chapter 13. Detach from the outcome. The Stoics placed their faith in effort, not result. To them, the outcome was not the proof of your worth. The attempt was. You underestimate yourself when you measure success by things outside your control. Focus on the process. Focus on showing up with presence, discipline, and heart. Let go of the obsession with outcomes and instead find meaning in your ability to show up again and again, especially when it's hard. The result may change, fluctuate, or even elude you, but who you become in the effort, that's eternal. Your identity is shaped in the work, not in the reward. Think of an archer, as Epictetus did. The archer trains daily. They prepare, take aim with still breath and steady hand, and let go. Once the arrow is in flight, it's no longer in their control. Wind, movement, timing, all unknown. But the archer judges not the target, but their technique, their form, and their composure. That is their domain. That is their responsibility. You, too, must focus on your form, on the habits you build, on the values you uphold. Are you aligned with your principles? Are you trying with honesty and full effort? Are you showing up with integrity? If so, then trust the rest. You are not measured by trophies. You are measured by how you showed up when it mattered. You are measured by the consistency of your character, the calmness in your courage, and the way you carry yourself when the outcome remains uncertain. That is what defines a Stoic, one who lives by effort, not ego, by principle, not praise. Each time you set a goal, write 2 lists: what I can control and what I can't. Review the first daily. Let go of the second. This habit will train your focus and reduce anxiety. Chapter 14. The Unseen Progress. Growth is not always visible. It rarely announces itself with fanfare or instant feedback. Confidence builds slowly, like water shaping stone, steady, quiet, but undeniable over time. Real change often happens beneath the surface, long before we see its fruits. When you underestimate yourself, it's often because you're expecting immediate results or dramatic breakthroughs. But just because the shift isn't obvious doesn't mean it's not happening. You are always becoming, sometimes in loud, visible ways, but more often in small, private victories that build momentum silently. The Stoics were patient. They knew character is forged quietly through repetition and resolve. They didn't rely on praise, and they didn't require acknowledgement. Instead, they focused on virtue lived daily, in how they responded to discomfort, how they treated others, and how they disciplined their minds. You don't need applause. You need consistency. You need to keep showing up even when you feel stuck, because stuck doesn't mean stagnant. It often means you're right on the edge of a breakthrough. You are still learning, still refining, still becoming, and often the moments that feel most uncertain are the ones doing the deepest work on you. Don't demand instant results. That's the trap of the impatient mind. Demand daily effort instead. Make effort your aim and trust that something meaningful is being built inside you with each repeated action. Even when progress feels invisible, you are laying the groundwork for lasting transformation. Foundations are never seen from the outside, but they're what hold everything else up. Trust that your work is creating depth, not just speed. Trust that time will bring clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the fruit ripens in its time, not by force. You are no different. Your growth cannot be rushed. You are ripening, even now, in your moments of doubt, in your quiet perseverance, and in your continued commitment to become something greater. Be patient. The progress is happening even when you can't see it. Start a victory jar. Each day, write down one small win, no matter how minor. Over time, you'll see that your self-doubt was blind to your real progress. Chapter 15. You were born ready. The final truth the Stoics leave us with is this: you were made for this, for life, for hardship, for greatness. You were not born to shrink, you were born to rise. You were not designed to live in fear of failure or rejection, but to confront both and continue forward. Life does not demand perfection from you, it demands presence, resilience, and the willingness to try again when the path grows difficult. Every challenge you face is a reminder of your capacity, not your limits. Each obstacle calls forth the part of you that is patient, powerful, and persistent. Every doubt you carry is an invitation, not to run or hide, but to remember who you are at your core. The Stoics didn't build their wisdom on fantasy or wishful thinking. They built it on hard-earned clarity, on lessons from pain, from discipline, and from self-reflection. They didn't need grand speeches or heroic announcements. They woke up each day and chose courage, and so do you, whether you realize it yet or not. You are more powerful than you think, not because someone told you so, but because the proof lives in the quiet moments. The breath you take before a difficult conversation, the thought you interrupt when it turns destructive, the step you take even when you're afraid. Power isn't always loud. Often it is soft, steady, and invisible to the world, but unmistakable to the soul. You are living proof of your own strength, simply by continuing to rise after every fall. You have underestimated yourself long enough. You have dimmed your light to make others comfortable, questioned your value out of habit, and paused your potential for fear of being misunderstood. It's time to walk differently, not to impress, but to express your strength, your clarity, your inner peace. Speak differently, not louder, but wiser. Think differently, not with fear, but with firm resolve, with calm, with strength, with fire. Because that fire, when cultivated with intention, can ignite a life of meaning, leadership, and unshakable purpose. Each morning, stand tall, look in the mirror, say aloud, "I was born ready." Then act like it. The world doesn't need a louder you, it needs a truer you. there will always be reasons to doubt, voices, memories, fears. But the Stoic path is not about removing them, it's about rising above them. Not because you have to prove yourself to others, but because you owe it to yourself. You are not your mistakes, you are not your fears. You are the will that keeps walking, the mind that keeps thinking, the soul that keeps striving. Don't underestimate yourself. Live as if you've already become who you're meant to be, because you have everything you need, right now.